So, you want to draw anime faces. Actually not too different from drawing a regular face. For when you're drawing a regular face, you always want to know proportions, right? It's the same thing for anime faces. There's only slight differences. Best way, as always, is to start with a center line. Sorry that I can't draw straight. Okay, after the center line, you want to start with a midline. Normally, the midline would be where the eyes would go. Something like that. However, for anime, the eyes are actually going to go underneath it. Having the eyes underneath is what makes those big foreheads that you see in anime. Now, if you notice, I actually drew an oval right in the center, so it looks like it's 3 eyes instead of 2. And this is because in anime proportions, the usual cute looking ones are 3 eyes wide. By 3 eyes wide, we mean that the face proportions are exactly as they sound. There's 3 eyes from edge to edge. And also from here, we can basically make out the entire face just from this part. Yep, dibs on the band name. Anyway, one thing that comic artists do is actually divide the face into thirds. And by thirds, it's actually easier to figure out instead of going with all nose in the middle and chin on the bottom and everything. So you can see the first third is where the eyes are going to go. The second third, the nose will be in the middle. And the last third is where the mouth goes. And that's where the face is going to be made up, basically. Now, if you want to make it look as cute anime as possible, usually you have the cheek curve right where the nose is. So you can kind of see where the face is starting to come out there. See it? Now, it's okay if it looks sketchy or wonky at the beginning, because that's the good thing about digital art, we can erase. And especially if you make a pencil pen or like the one I'm using here, it gives you a lot of leeway before getting dark. Now, we can also kind of see the here where we can make the whole face. See, the proportion still stands where the eyes are half the face, so the face goes basically from top to eyes and from eyes to chin. Okay, so all we have to do now is just basically flip that over. Okay, might have overestimated. This is a thing that comes with instinct more. You kind of want to get a feel for where the top of the head is going to be. And you notice that anime faces, especially the ones that I kind of draw, they're very egg-shaped. Mine's is a little more blunted, but you can see it. See how the head kind of extends that way. Already starting to get a feel for Sketch Club Live, guys, 2014. Now, there's a lot of ways to draw the anime eye, and there's everything from cartoonish to weird to realistic. Mine's is a little bigger and kind of almond shape, and the focus is on the top eyelash. Now, the way the eye is suited, it kind of gives you a different feeling depending if there's a bottom or not to the eye. Let me show you. All right, so this is kind of you can see the rounded bottom right there, and it looks a little bit okay. It looks like it's just looking at you, right? But now if we cut it off and give it an actual bottom lid, it'll look something more like this. And you saw how that already kind of gave it a different feeling. Yeah, and I forgot to make this disclaimer at the beginning. Like I said before to anybody who wasn't here, I'm still a student myself. So don't think of me as giving you the golden rule. This is more like tips that you can incorporate into your own learning. Now, one of the best ways to distinguish each eye from each side is to give it that closing, like this. See, that way you can kind of see exactly where the eye is and kind of give you also an idea of the edge of the eye so you can see when they're looking left, right, or straight ahead. Also gives you an excuse to draw a lot of pretty eyelashes. Now, if you remember Artigan, he actually talked about when you put cute stuff in, you want to put the mouth and the nose right in the middle between the eyes. Same principle applies here. Now, I've noticed a lot of people can have problems when drawing the face head on because the eyes can look like they're off to the side or looking in different directions. And honestly, there's no cure for that. And it's better because we can do it digitally that we can basically experiment and erase until we start to get them to look right. That's actually a good point, Bunny. The back is actually one of the hardest ways to draw the face. So if you can see, I'm basically just refining and darkening parts that I think are the best part until you start to get an overall shape. Oh yeah, inking can kind of suck. I actually don't ink anymore. I just kind of erase my sketch until I get the black parts left. Again, something you can really only do digitally. You're that good with a pencil. Now, let's actually talk about eyebrows since I'm just doing that right now. There's a really easy way to get your eyebrows right, especially from the head on. Look at that superhero mask. I'm not sure if you guys can see it clearly, but it's there. If any of you can see it, what I basically drew is kind of the outline of a superhero mask, you know, like those from like the 90s and stuff like that. And that's basically one of the best ways to actually make the eyebrows. You can kind of already see where they're going to fall around the head. And those superhero masks, they really follow the contours of the face. So if you can imagine like an expression being made, you can also just imagine the mask moving around. You can see I messed up on one of the eyebrows. I'm kind of really messing it up, and that's okay because we still have our eraser, right? On the subject of erasers, I think everybody should make a custom eraser, which is the soft brush, and then just tone the flow way, way down. Right, could everybody see that menu that I opened right there? Okay, good. So you notice what you're looking at, my eraser is like really, really, you can barely even see it on that preview screen. Flow of the eraser is somewhere between, I think, 8 or 20%, maybe even lower. Sorry, I'll speak up. Can you hear me now? Okay, yeah, right there. You can see my eraser's flow is at 4% strength. And that basically gives you a really, really ultra light touch, and it's what I'll use for erasing out the parts that I don't want. You guys can kind of see why it takes so long to do my drawings. Like I said, just trial and error, erase and sculpt. You're going to want your eyebrows to be somewhere around the same length as your eyes. Maybe not exactly, but pretty close. what I'm going to do is I'm going to start erasing all the guidelines. And we're going to do what I just said earlier. I'm going to sculpt the face like like clay. Now, normally I would just use just the soft brush for this when I'm taking my time, but for this class I'm just going to use the regular eraser just to save on time. And as you're erasing, you can go back in with your pen and start to make the face. To fill in any spots that either you erase too much or you feel you could go more. Now, here's something that a lot of people seem to find odd about anime, which is the mouth. Mouths in anime can basically be whatever you want again. The ones that I draw are actually two separate dots unless it's an open mouth. This basically gives it a feeling where your own eye connects the dots without me actually having to draw that line. So basically, open mouth, you want to draw it just like a regular open mouth, maybe without the bottom part. But closed mouth, it works okay if you just draw the two dots. So you can kind of see we basically have the face going on already. I'm just going to say, Bunny, that the face really comes down with practice and learning how to move your curves. By that I mean that you want to draw with your entire arm and not your wrist. All you really need is to learn proportions and then just practice. And also that thing about the arm and wrist, they're not exclusive. When you're drawing, you have to use both. There are parts where you need your wrist and parts where you need your arm. To be the king, you never have to capitalize. Woo, sound back, yay. Now, let's. The best way to complete the face is to just draw the hair. You don't need to draw the top of the head for anime. Well, you can, but you don't really have to. So, like we said before, and like you can see, we already have the top of the head going. You just want to make the impression that the hair is coming from the top of the head, and this is something that some people don't seem to get right away. People kind of draw the start of the hair a little too low or right next to the eyebrows. So even if it looks like a full head of hair, you feel that something's missing. Sketching just go crazy on your hair strands. You just want to get the overall shape first. Or, go crazy, I meant. This is all just one layer so far. Well, see, Mishpat, you already got that. I'm going to stand about 5 feet away from you at all times. Oh no, I'm not worried about it catching. And just like with the face, you can kind of just start to darken in the parts of the hair that you like. Yeah, I'm actually going to talk about that right after this part. That's actually a really good point, Arrow. Female and male are pretty androgynous in anime, and really the best thing when you're learning anime is to practice drawing females. I think I mentioned that last class. The one of my professors actually explained this the best. When you have female sexiness and female femininity already gotten, then it's not that hard to just tone it way down and learn to and draw men. On the other hand, if you only know how to draw men, it's hard to dial it up all the way to being feminine and draw women without looking camp. Actually, kind of try this yourself. Spend like an entire month or a week at least just drawing pure men, and then try to draw a female spontaneously. Well, you're kind of on the way then, Wendy. Men and women really don't have that many differences as people would think. Key points are basically shoulders, chest, and hips. Everything else is just mostly a question of muscle mass. You can also kind of look at this yourself. I think I mentioned Kufei a while ago in the last class. Yeah, men tend to have smaller eyes. That's a given, pretty much. Especially in anime, men's eyes tend to be more almond shaped, almost realistic, compared to females, which tend to have a more oval or circle shape. The name was Ku-Fei from Maho Sensei Negima. If any of you know that anime, or it's the same guy who made Love Hina. Harem. In one of the later chapters, Kufei actually, she's a pretty muscular girl, and while it doesn't show often, there's some chapters where you can see her muscles pretty clearly. Kufei, let me just type it down. Now, in the one chapter in particular that I'm thinking of, when they were actually having an arm wrestling contest, it got pretty hard at times to tell which hand was Kufei's and which one was Negi's when they're both muscular. And that was basically Akamatsu's really good way of showing the difference in muscle mass. It's basically very little. Yeah, kind of does. And 9 actually brings up a pretty good point. Pretty much, I'd say 99% of anime and manga artists learned by learning from somebody else's style. And in fact, I've done the same thing, and pretty much everybody else has done it. It's as simple as basically finding your favorite art style and just buying their books and looking for their characters and just kind of practicing off of them. Most good artists, most artists that have been out there for a while, you can basically just start to copy them down, and after a while, your own natural drawing style will come through. Just don't completely trace or rip it off. You'll know because once you start to draw it freehand, you can't help but bring in your own art style. And this isn't to say that there is no way to completely copy somebody's style. There's actually a pretty well-known branch of drawing anime and manga known as copycats. And people who call copycats are basically in the industry just what they sound like. They can copy an art style directly. Copycats are actually a pretty legitimate thing, especially in Japan where a lot of the manga artists live. Uh, for particularly the author of Naruto has basically an army of them. That's basically the reason, if anybody was wondering, why Naruto can release an entire book in every week. I always have a trouble for some reason pronouncing his name. Same thing as Disney. So anybody who thinks they're bad for doing this or something like that, it's more about how you go about it. Well, one thing that you want to do is you want to try to minimize them and then bring it back up. For example, if I draw too many hair strands, this whole thing will just look pretty overcomplicated. Here, let me show you a count of how many there are. So you can see that I have about 15 or 14 actual hair strands there. And if I drew too many, it'd start to look just overcomplicated. It'd look like I was putting realistic hair on a cartoon face. On the other hand, if you put too little, it might oversimplify it. And so you want to basically get right in the middle. And this is more of a practice thing. You'll start to learn it yourself. What I basically did was just started doing them until I got right. You can kind of see I drew a lot of little hair strands when I was basically doing that sketching part of the hair. A really easy way to actually do this is draw all the hair you want like I did and then just put them into clumps. You kind of just want to style this. Find the clumps that look the best and then just follow the shape. This is actually much easier to see if you buy something like a hairstyling magazine. You'll notice that people actually really do have their hair in clumps. It's just that it doesn't look that way when you're looking at them up close. Now, I want to show something really quick that somebody asked earlier, and that's about coloring. Well, PK has a one giant invisible clump, maybe. I realize this may be a little sequence breaking, but I really want to get this for people who wanted to see the face just being colored. Now, I don't know if you guys can see my color palette right there. Okay, good. I want you to look at the bottom two colors. You can basically think of that color as the very bottom one as the universal skin color for anime. The one right over it can be called the universal shading color for skin. And the third one up is the darkest shading color for skin. And these three colors, I say universal because you can basically make a variation out of each of the three. So you notice I just made little variations, but they all can basically work as the basic, then shadow, then dark shadow for each one. Tell you what, I'm going to just upload this after class, so you guys can, I guess, save the picture. I'm just going to do the ones in the middle just to make the face shadows, and you'll basically see how quickly you can make them. For drawing the color, you just kind of want to lay down the first big basic color and just get it to cover everything. Remember, colors should go on normal layers, and your sketch or your line art should be on a multiply layer near the top. For laying down the big basic color on the bottom, you want to use the hard round brush at like 100% opacity. This ensures that you basically get your canvas. After that, the mid color will basically cover all your shadows. For the mid color, I'm using the same brush that I have shared that you can download. Specialty brush, it's really basically more about using it. You'll want to have to practice with this one because there's a lot of different ways you can use it. It can be hard or it can be soft depending on how fast and how you actually move it. Now, I learned from the artist Sunako, so his noses use more of an airbrush style thing, which I'm going to show right here. It's basically an easy way to make a cute nose and give it some shadow without having to, go too realistic into it. And since you already have the spray brush out, which is what I'm using, it's a really, really light 4% opacity brush, you can just go ahead and put in a blush here. Now, a blush, you've all basically seen it in anime, and it looks really spray painted, and that's basically how it can look in real life too. It's just blood that's in your cheek. And the best way to do it is to just go from the outsides of the face in. Yes, it takes me a few tries. You kind of just want to adjust this to the face. So you can kind of see this is already looking pretty okay. Just give it the dark shadow. I'm just going to go back in with the same brush that I was using at first. No, sorry, PK. Adjust the blush to the face. There you can kind of see where it comes in handy using my brush. Since it can get soft, I'm just going to try to blend the things without even changing brush. And okay, you can kind of basically see the face here already. She? Oh crap, she was supposed to be a guy. Highlights are pretty easy on this kind of anime face. You just kind of want one on the nose and on the cheeks. Now, if you noticed, I put the highlight on the cheeks looking right where basically the light is. You can kind of also look at the shadows and notice that the light is coming from a direction. Now, this is this one was kind of done pretty messily, but you can kind of see just the parts that you have to erase after that. When you're coloring, also some artists, is like Sunako, he'll just take his shadow and use that to connect the mouth. This part's pretty optional. Just use your basic shadow and do something like this. So yeah, you can either decide if you like it or not. I kind of tend to be neutral about it. Sometimes I forget it, sometimes I don't. Depends how much you want to make sure that the mouth is shown. Sorry, the mouth, you can just use your basic shadow to create the mouth if you really want people to see it. All optional right there. Now, I actually want to say that it's good to zoom in and then zoom way out so you can kind of see where you're missing stuff, just to see if there's parts that you want to fix. For example, I kind of want to fix that neck a little more. And remember, there's absolutely nothing wrong with just erasing everything if you don't like it. One of the hardest things that I see every artist have trouble with is learning when to erase their stuff. They kind of grow attached to it. Now, what I want to talk about right here is see what feedback you guys have. Let's see what you guys want to see me do. Just I know there are a lot more questions than this, so go ahead. Well, while I wait for the millions of fan mail coming in, I'm just gonna be over here singing Hakuna Matata. Eyes. Okay, what about the eyes? Okay, good thing about pupils. That's something that needs a lot of practice. You can basically think of as the starting point for an anime eye. An anime eye is basically just you can say a caricature of a real eye. Now, I'm no expert realist, but this is basically what a real eye would look like. And If you've ever studied realism or you know stuff about realism, the big secret about the eye is basically that it's an oval being covered by two flaps of skin, one pupil in the middle, which is where you see out of. This is basically supported even more if you look at a muscle chart. There's flaps of muscles and stuff that are controlling the two eyelids. And this principle basically extends into the anime eye. So, for an anime eye, the easiest way that I found is to just start with the top eyelid. There are basically three real different ways to draw the eyelid. The one that arcs up is, tsundere. It's basically like not violent characters, but high spirited, courageous. You know those kind. That's basically, I think I got Surime spelled wrong, but whatever. That's the idea. So basically, the eyes, especially of anime, are important, and they also give you the idea of the character's personality. First one, Tsundere, the one which is pointing up, is like I said earlier, courageous. They're angrier. They're free spirited. Those kind. Second one, which is kind of pointing down, that one would be Surime. These are the characters that are really soft spoken. The shrinking violets. You know those. And regular is used for anybody who can't really be classified into any of them. And basically, a lot of characters use this one, or are, or most men actually have this one in anime. And the pupils, when you're putting in the pupils, you kind of want to make a circle just like you would with a regular eye, but you don't want to draw the circle. So you can see the bottom eyelid right there, and it's making the whole circle just like with a regular eye. For especially cute characters, like the kind that I draw, or just characters in general that aren't squinting their eyes, they tend to have very little bottom eyelid, and it's usually just part of the eye itself. Good way to start drawing the pupil is also to start from the top of the eyelid and just bring it down. You can kind of see that how I just did it right there. I started from the top, brought it down, and rounded it back up. And the eye size, basically, it depends on two things. One, how you want to draw them, and two, how young the character is, since younger characters or innocent characters tend to have bigger pupils than evil characters. You know, you've all seen this, or anti-heroes. And just like everything we've been doing so far, you don't have to get them right away. You can just kind of get the shape and then sculpt it into place. Oh yeah, you're right, Wendy. I've just been basically grouping them together. Just everybody that what Wendy says is true. I've been grouping them together. Sorry if you got confused. That does bring up a good point. There's a again, just like everything basically in anime, it all depends on you if you want to have a pupil or not. You can or if you want it black or if you just want it to be blended into the color of the eye. That's my jargon for it, Wendy. That's all basically just me remembering things. It's like the mix-up that we had last time about bicep and tricep. That's just how I've been calling it. I'm pretty sure I know it wasn't right. It's just my way. Don't take it as your golden rule. So yeah, sorry if you guys noticed that I'm out of anatomy or something. I'm probably one, yeah, out of anatomy, and two, I'm just using it as my own legalese. The advantage, it's basically, again, two things. One, if you want to have it or not, it's art style. And two, how intense you want a character. A black pupil makes a character look more intense than a character with no pupil. Or maybe they can have a pupil, but it'll be just colored into the color of the eye. And that also makes them less intense than a black pupil. So let me color in a black pupil and the color in here for the anime eye for the tsundere, and you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Both eyes, I'm going to use the same blue color for the overall eye, and then you can kind of see the difference. By the way, coloring an eye is basically the same thing as the other ones. Get three color tones and maybe blend them. Color really comes from just looking at instinct and following a gradient. If you were wondering how I pick colors, that's the easiest way to describe it. Instinct and following a gradient. Don't be afraid to experiment with your colors. As always, you can always just erase it and start again. The darkest color, you just kind of want it to be at the top, and it'll just give it that extra, oomph. And I'm advertising here, but you can use my same brush to just blend it in so you won't have to change at all. By the way, when you're drawing in the eyeshadows for the white of the eye, you just want to follow the same shadow that you already did on the pupil. I lined it out in red so you can kind of see the path right there. Don't forget to pick up some popcorn at the gift stand. By the way, it's always good if you can see what I've been doing to just, whenever you have a color you like, just jot it down somewhere in the background so you can always color pick it back up again. Now right here I'm going to show you how to do a pupil that isn't black and just go with it. And this is the same one that I used on my last drawing. So there, you can kind of compare the two eyes and you can already see which one looks more intense. And funny enough, even a shrinking violet can have the black pupil. There's really nothing wrong with that. I can just reverse the two pupils, and the attitude will probably show through more, but that black pupil will give it that extra, intensiveness. So, did this help you, Bunny? Anybody else have any other questions? So how is it going? Any other questions, or are you guys okay for now? I'm gonna say this right now, but I'm probably gonna try to arrange with PK and BP again a class that's only about coloring, because I think you guys might want to see that one too. Yeah, because coloring in general has a lot of things to do. Isn't it awesome how everything was going on great, and then at the very last moment I still made a mistake? Anyway, we'll see if we can do that one for next week. I might be busy though, so it might even be a few weeks after that. So, thus concludes today's class. Everybody grab a mint on the way out, and don't worry if there's a funny taste. Here's some extra classes extra drawings that I did for anybody that wants to take a look at them. Glad you thought so. And I hope to see everybody, well, see everybody learned. All right, so I'm gonna stop the live screen now, and you guys can chat amongst yourselves. Have fun.